The deadlock continues in Washington as Republicans and Democrats struggle to find a compromise to the debt ceiling issue. And Barack Obama continues to apply pressure to Capitol Hill to get its house in order.
This is not some abstract issue. These are obligations that the United States has taken on in the past. The Congress has run up the credit card, and we now have an obligation to pay our bills. If we do not, it could have a whole set of adverse consequences. We could end up with a situation, for example, where interest rates rise for everybody all throughout the country. Effectively a tax increase on everybody, because suddenly, whether you're using your credit card, you're trying to get a loan for a car or a student loan, businesses that are trying to make payroll, all of them could end up being impacted as a consequence of a default.
Credit rating agencies appear to be pretty unimpressed with the proceedings as well, although yields on treasuries do remain extremely low for now. And I'm now joined by Gareth Berry from UBS. Gareth, where will investors put their cash if US debt is downgraded, and why have yields remained so low?
You've certainly raised a good point about what's happening at the moment, and that is that US Treasury yields haven't moved very far just yet. I think that may change as we near the key August 2nd deadline. Of course, if we do see an actual downgrade, then we could see some outflows from the US Treasury market. I don't think we'll see massive outflows because ultimately this is not a solvency problem. This is a technical issue that most investors assume will be quickly resolved, and even if there is a technical default, in other words a delayed payment, the assumption is that very quickly, once the issue is resolved, the investors who are affected will be made whole very quickly by the Treasury. So this is not about a lack of willingness to pay, it's simply a technical issue, and I think as long as investors believe that, and there's every reason to believe they will continue to believe that for some time, I don't think this is the major issue that many, I guess, newspapers might feel that it could become. Of course, the longer it takes for the whole issue to disappear and to be solved, the greater the risk that something unexpected happens. But I think the flows out of the dollar we will likely see between now and August 2nd will be quite small and relatively orderly, and as a result I don't think the dollar will notice that much. Of course, if an actual default were to happen, or in fact even if a downgrade were to happen, that would be a very different situation, and I suspect the yen and the Swiss franc would do very well in that scenario. So the dollar would be sold against both the yen and the Swiss franc as they are safe haven alternatives. But I suspect the US dollar would actually advance against risk currencies like the Australian dollar and the Kiwi dollar, simply because I would expect a lot of risk aversion and uncertainty in the market after a downgrade and after potentially a default. And ironically, that would actually be dollar supportive against certain currencies, but dollar negative against the safe haven alternatives.
So would it be fair to say that the Japanese yen and Swiss franc are becoming the safe havens of choice?
I wouldn't necessarily say so. The thing about the Swiss franc is, while it's clearly done very well this year, is there is a very small domestic asset market denominated in Swiss francs, and as a result, a lot of real money investors who have a lot of cash and assets under management, they need a home for that cash, and it's hard to find a better home than the biggest asset market in the world, which is the US Treasury market, and it's difficult to see the Swiss asset market being any sort of realistic challenger to the US Treasury market, at least in the near term. The Japanese market is quite different. I think it's a plausible alternative for Japanese investors if they wish to find another home for their assets, if they wanted to avoid US Treasuries. But I think it's generally considered to be unsuitable for foreign investors. And if you look at the statistics about who holds JGBs, you'll see that about 5% of JTBs are held overseas by overseas investors. The rest is held domestically, and there are many reasons for that. One reason in particular is that yields are so low, so that has scared away a lot of foreign investors. And I think those investors will still favour the US Treasury market, even in the event of a default, provided, as I said, that it's seen as a brief technical default that is quickly sort of corrected in the days and perhaps a week or two afterwards.
If we do get to August the 2nd and there is no solution, what can we expect? Would it be a cataclysmic day in the markets, or will the response be much more muted?
I think it will be a significant event for sure. If we get an actual downgrade or if we get an actual default, both of those events will be significant. I think we'll definitely notice. I think FX volatility will increase sharply on that day. I suspect the same will be true about the US Treasury market. I think investors will have to try to reconcile the dollar's sort of twin status in that scenario, and that is that the dollar is both the safe haven currency and, in this case, the source of the disturbance. And I think as a result, things will be highly volatile. Investors simply just won't know what to do. If you look at how the market reacted to the outlook downgrade, so S&P changed the outlook on the US rating, and if you look at it, the dollar initially sold off, and then suddenly the dollar was bought back again within about an hour, and investors were extremely confused and didn't really know how to react to that piece of information. And I expect we'll see something very similar, except on a grander scale, if an actual downgrade or if an actual default were to take place. Lots of volatility, perhaps no clear direction in the likes of euro dollar, but dollar yen will very likely fall, dollar Swiss will very likely fall, and Aussie dollar, US dollar, that particular pair is likely to fall quite heavily, along with equity markets and the Kiwi as well. So risk off, but highly volatile.
Okay, thanks for speaking to me, Gareth. My colleague Katie Pilbeam will be bringing you more targets in focus shortly, this time from Commerce Bank. But for now, goodbye.